The letter from the IRS sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. $347,000 in unpaid taxes. My hands trembled as I read the notice again, hoping the numbers would somehow rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. I'm Summer, and until this morning, I thought I was doing pretty well for a 28-year-old marketing manager. Decent apartment, reliable Honda Civic, and enough savings to treat myself to occasional weekend getaways. But now I was staring at a tax bill that exceeded my annual salary 5 times over. This has to be a mistake, I muttered, grabbing my phone. My father answered on the second ring. Princess, what a lovely surprise. Dad, I need you to explain something. I cut him off, my voice sharper than intended. I just got a notice from the IRS about unpaid taxes on income I've never seen. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. The pause that followed lasted a beat too long. Oh, sweetheart, that must be a mistake. Why don't you bring it over and we'll sort it out? Something in his tone made my stomach clench. I grabbed my keys and the letter, already heading for the door. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive to my parents' suburban home felt endless. When I arrived, Dad was waiting in his usual spot, the leather armchair by the window where he'd read me stories as a kid. But today, his warm smile seemed practiced, rehearsed. Show me the letter, he said, extending his hand. I watched his face as he read it, noting how his expression didn't register any surprise. Well, I prompted. Summer, sweetie, sit down. He gestured to the couch. There's something we need to discuss. I'd rather stand. He sighed, setting the letter aside. Remember when you turned 18 and I had you sign some papers for your college fund? The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Those weren't just college fund documents, were they? I needed to protect our family's assets, he said, his voice taking on that familiar authoritative tone he used when explaining adult things to me. The market was unstable and I had to make some strategic decisions. Strategic decisions? I interrupted. You used my identity to hide money from the IRS? Lower your voice, he hissed, glancing toward the kitchen where Mom was probably pretending not to listen. This isn't as simple as you're making it sound. Everything I did was to secure our family's future. Your future. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. What are you doing? He asked, tension creeping into his voice. Calling Elizabeth. Our family lawyer? Don't be dramatic, Summer. We can handle this internally. Handle what internally? Mom appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. What's going on? Dad stood up, approaching me with his hands raised in a placating gesture. Nothing that concerns you, Jessica. Summer's just confused about some paperwork. Confused? I laughed, the sound brittle and harsh. Dad used my identity to hide money from the government, and now I'm on the hook for hundreds of thousands in taxes. Is that clear enough for everyone? Mom's dish towel dropped to the floor. Terrence, what is she talking about? Don't worry about it, he said quickly. Summer's overreacting. I'll take care of everything. Like you've been taking care of things for the past 10 years? I shot back. Using my name, my social security number, my identity. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Princess, please, let's discuss this rationally. I'm your father. Everything I've done has been for you. I jerked away from his grip. Don't touch me, and don't call me princess. If you walk out that door and involve outsiders in family business, he warned, his voice dropping low, you'll regret it. I stopped at the threshold, turning to face him one last time. No, Dad. The only thing I regret is trusting you. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with messages from both parents. I ignored them, instead pulling into a coffee shop parking lot and dialing a different number. Michael, it's Summer. Remember how you always said you owed me one for covering for you in 10th grade? I need your help with something big. How much do you know about investigating financial fraud? The line crackled with his response, and for the first time since opening that letter, I felt something other than panic and betrayal. I felt purpose. My father had spent years building his house of lies, using my identity as the foundation. Now it was time to tear it down, brick by brick, until nothing remained but the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. He did what? Parker nearly choked on his coffee. We were sitting in his apartment where I'd fled after leaving my parents' house. The evening light cast long shadows across his living room as I showed him the IRS notice. Used my identity to hide money, I repeated, pacing back and forth. And the worst part? He acted like I was being unreasonable for getting upset about it. Parker set down his mug and caught my hand as I passed, pulling me onto the couch beside him. Have you talked to a lawyer yet? I called Elizabeth, the family attorney. She's meeting me tomorrow morning. I leaned into his shoulder, exhausted. And Michael's coming too. He thinks there might be a story here. Michael from high school? The journalist? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. The 20th message from my father since I'd left. I switched it to silent without reading it. You should see these texts, I said, handing Parker my phone. He's switching between threatening me and guilt-tripping me every other message. Parker scrolled through them, his frown deepening. Remember everything I've sacrificed for you. Don't destroy this family. Jesus, Summer, this is manipulation 101. A knock at the door made me jump. Michael stood there, laptop bag slung over his shoulder, looking exactly like the eager investigative journalist he'd become. Sorry I'm late, he said, pulling out his laptop, but I've been doing some preliminary digging. Summer, have you ever heard of a company called Meridian Ventures? I shook my head. Well, according to public records, you're listed as its CEO. I'm what? I grabbed his laptop, staring at the document he'd pulled up. There was my name, clear as day, on company registration papers dated back to my 18th birthday. There's more, Michael continued, pulling up another window. The company has been involved in dozens of real estate transactions over the past decade, all using your name, your social security number. Parker leaned forward. How much money are we talking about? Based on what I've found so far? Michael grimaced. Millions. My stomach lurched. I think I'm going to be sick. We need to document everything, Michael said, his journalist instincts kicking in. Every paper you signed, every conversation you remember. Elizabeth can help with the legal angle, but we need to build a solid case. What about your mom? Parker asked. Does she know anything about this? I thought about her shocked face when I'd revealed Dad's deception. No, I don't think so. She looked genuinely surprised. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Peyton, Dad's secretary. Your father is very concerned. Please call him. He only wants to make things right. Make things right? I showed the message to Michael. He's using his secretary to pressure me now? Actually, Michael said slowly, Peyton might be useful. How well do you know her? We've talked at company events. She's always been nice, but she's totally loyal to Dad. Maybe too loyal, Parker suggested. She might know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. I stood up, energy suddenly coursing through me. You're right, and I know exactly how to approach her. Dad's hosting that charity gala next week, the one he does every year. Peyton always handles the details. Michael's eyes lit up. Perfect opportunity to do some digging. I can get press credentials. No, I interrupted. I need to play this carefully. I'll go alone, act like the dutiful daughter trying to make peace. Peyton tends to talk when she's stressed, and organizing these events always stresses her out. Parker looked worried. Are you sure you can face your father? I have to. I squared my shoulders. Besides, I learned from the best, didn't I? Dad taught me everything about putting on a good show for the public. Michael was already typing. I'll keep digging into Meridian Ventures. There has to be a paper trail somewhere. And I'll go with you to meet Elizabeth tomorrow, Parker added, squeezing my hand. Looking at them both, Parker with his unwavering support and Michael with his determined focus, I felt stronger than I had all day. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder, more focused. One more thing, I said, picking up my phone. I need to respond to Dad's messages, something that'll keep him off balance until next week. I typed quickly. Dad, I'm sorry I overreacted. You're right. We should handle this as a family. Give me a few days to process everything. I'll see you at the gala. The response was immediate. That's my girl. We'll sort this out together, Princess. I showed the exchange to Michael and Parker. And that's how you play the player. Michael whistled low. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Too late, I said, managing a small smile. You already did in 10th grade. Why do you think you owe me one? Elizabeth's office felt colder than I remembered. She sat across from me, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed the documents Michael had gathered. This is concerning, she said, setting down a stack of papers. Your father's been thorough, I'll give him that. The way he's structured these companies, it's like a Russian nesting doll of fraud. Can we prove it? I asked, leaning forward. With the right evidence, yes. But Summer, she removed her glasses. You need to understand what you're getting into. Taking down Terrence won't be easy. He's got connections, resources. And I've got the truth, I cut in. Plus whatever's in that filing cabinet behind Peyton's desk. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. You've seen something? Not yet. But at last year's gala, I saw Dad practically dive for it when Peyton was showing me some old photos. He practically shoved me out of the office. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. I ignored it as Elizabeth continued. If there's documentation in that cabinet, we need it. But accessing it illegally could compromise everything. Leave that to me, I said, standing up. I should get going. I'm meeting Peyton for coffee in an hour. The coffee shop was crowded when I arrived. Peyton was already there, perfectly put together as always. A stack of gala planning documents spread across the table. Summer! She stood to hug me. I'm so glad you reached out. Your father's been worried sick. I know, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. I just needed time to process everything. The gala planning is probably a good distraction. Oh, absolutely. She brightened, pushing a folder toward me. I could use your help with the seating arrangements. Your father's been so distracted lately, he's barely looked at them. Distracted? I kept my tone casual. That's not like him. Peyton lowered her voice. Between us, he's been having a lot of closed-door meetings. Yesterday, he had me shredding documents for hours. My heart jumped, but I maintained my composure. Really? What kind of documents? I didn't look too closely, she said, but her expression suggested otherwise. But there was something about Meridian Ventures. Just then, her phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I should take this, she said, standing up. He's been calling constantly. As she walked away to answer, I noticed she'd left her tablet on the table. The screen was still unlocked, her email open. My fingers itched to grab it, but the risk was too high. Instead, I focused on what she'd said about the shredding. I pulled out my phone and texted Michael. Dad's destroying evidence. Need to move faster. Peyton returned, looking flustered. I'm so sorry, Summer, but I need to head back to the office. Your father needs some urgent files from the cabinet. The one behind your desk? I asked innocently. She nodded, already gathering her things. He's been in and out of those files all week. Listen, about the gala. Can you stop by tomorrow? We really need to finalize these arrangements. Of course, I smiled. Same time as always? Perfect. And Summer? She paused, her expression softening. Whatever's going on with you and your father, he really does love you. I maintained my smile until she left, then immediately called Michael. Did you get my text? I asked when he answered. Yeah, but I've got something bigger. Remember those real estate transactions? I found a pattern. Every major purchase coincides with a large withdrawal from an account in your name. How large? The latest one was 2 weeks ago, $500,000. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. 2 weeks ago? That's when he asked me to sign those insurance documents for his estate planning. Which weren't insurance documents at all, I'm guessing. No, I said, my voice hardening. But tomorrow, I'm going to find out exactly what they were. Peyton just invited me to the office to work on gala planning. Summer, Michael's tone was warning. Be careful. If your father catches you. He won't, I interrupted, because he'll be at his weekly golf game. He never misses it. Appearances to maintain and all that. After hanging up, I sat there for a long moment, watching people come and go. Normal people, living normal lives, not discovering their fathers had been stealing their identities for a decade. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mom. I found some strange papers in your father's study. Can we meet? This time, I responded, tomorrow afternoon. Don't tell Dad. The pieces were falling into place. But as I gathered my things to leave, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the coffee shop window. The woman staring back at me looked different somehow. Harder, more determined. Dad had taught me well about keeping up appearances. Now it was time to put those lessons to use. The office hallway stretched before me like a tunnel. Peyton was in the bathroom. Just 5 minutes, she'd chirped, leaving me alone with that filing cabinet and the thundering of my heart. I moved quickly, sliding open the drawer she'd accessed earlier. My fingers trembled as I snapped photos of everything that looked important. Contracts, bank statements, company registrations. All with my signature, but in different inks, different years. A sound in the hallway made me freeze. But it was just the cleaning crew, pushing their cart past the door. The bottom drawer was locked. Of course it was. That's where Dad had nearly panicked when I'd gotten close last year. I was about to give up when I noticed Peyton's keyring on her desk, half hidden under a gala seating chart. Come on, come on, I muttered, trying keys with shaking hands. The fourth one clicked. Inside was a single manila envelope labeled Summer Original Documents. I opened it, and 18-year-old me stared back from a stack of papers. College fund documents, Dad had said. Looking at them now, with adult eyes, I could see what they really were. Power of attorney forms, company registrations, bank account authorizations, quick photos, then everything back exactly as I'd found it. I was just settling into my chair when Peyton returned. Sorry about that. She sat down, spreading out the gala papers. Now, about the seating arrangements. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Where are you? I've been waiting at the cafe. Shit. I'd completely forgotten about meeting her. Peyton, I'm so sorry. I stood up, gathering my things. I completely forgot I promised to meet Mom for coffee. Can we finish this tomorrow? Of course. Actually, she hesitated. Your father's been asking about you. He wants to know if you're still coming to dinner tonight. Wouldn't miss it, I lied smoothly. Tell him I'll be there at 7. I found Mom at our usual cafe, stirring her cold coffee with a distant look. I found something, she said without preamble, pulling papers from her bag. Bank statements, lots of them, all with your name, but with transactions I know you couldn't have made. I took the statements, my throat tight. How did you find these? Your father's been distracted lately, left his study door unlocked. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed. Summer, what has he done? I showed her the photos I'd just taken. As she scrolled through them, her hands started shaking. 20 years of marriage, she whispered, and I never knew. Mom, no, she cut me off. Don't try to protect me. I need to know everything. So I told her about the IRS notice, the fake companies, the millions hidden under my name. With each revelation, she seemed to shrink further into herself. I've been such a fool, she finally said. We both were. But now we can... My phone rang. Michael. Summer, he said without greeting. You need to see this. Can you come to my office now? I'm with Mom. Bring her. She should see this too. Michael's office was cluttered with papers and coffee cups. He barely looked up as we entered, focused on his computer screen. Remember those real estate transactions? He turned the screen toward us. They weren't just random investments. Your father's been laundering money through them. Lots of it. Mom sank into a chair. How much? Based on what I've found, at least $15 million over the past decade. That's why he needed my identity, I said. His own would have raised red flags. Exactly. And here's the kicker. He's been doing it for others too. Wealthy clients who needed their money, cleaned. My phone buzzed again. Peyton, your father knows you were in the office today. He came back early from golf. He's asking questions about the filing cabinet. Cold fear washed over me. He knows. I showed them the message. Michael immediately started copying files to a flash drive. We need to move fast. If he realizes how much we know, he'll destroy everything. Mom finished, suddenly looking fierce. Not if I can help it. I'm going home now, going to keep him distracted. You two do whatever you need to do. She hugged me tightly before leaving. Be careful, sweetheart. Your father, he's not who we thought he was. After she left, Michael turned to me. What's our next move? I thought about the gala, just 2 days away. About all those wealthy clients who'd be there, not knowing their carefully hidden secrets were about to explode. We stick to the plan, I said, but we need to move up our timeline. The gala isn't just going to be a family event anymore. It's going to be a public execution. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. Dad stood on Parker's doorstep, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. Princess, he said, his voice strained. We need to talk. Parker appeared behind me. She doesn't want to talk to you. This is family business, Dad snapped. It doesn't concern you. Actually, I said, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. It concerns a lot of people, including your clients. His face went pale. What have you done? Nothing yet. But I know everything, Dad. The money laundering, the fake companies, using my identity to hide millions for your wealthy friends. He grabbed my arm, pulling me closer. Lower your voice. You have no idea what you're talking about. Let go of me. I yanked my arm free. Or should we discuss this at the gala instead? I'm sure your clients would love to hear how you've been handling their money. You wouldn't dare. But there was fear in his eyes now. I'm your father. Really? Because fathers don't steal their children's identities. They don't commit fraud using their daughter's name. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. Everything I did was to secure our future. Your future. My future, I laughed bitterly. I'm facing prison time because of you. No one's going to prison, he said quickly. I can fix this. Just give me time. Don't do anything rash. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. Documents ready. Elizabeth says we're good to go. Time's up, Dad. I turned to go back inside. See you at the gala. Summer, wait. He reached for me again, but Parker opened the door. I think you should leave, Parker said firmly. After Dad's car disappeared, I collapsed onto Parker's couch. That was harder than I expected. You did great, he said, sitting beside me. What's next? I need to see Mom. She's been texting all day about something she found. Mom was waiting at our old treehouse, my childhood refuge that Dad had built himself. The irony wasn't lost on me. Look at this, she said as soon as I climbed up, holding out a USB drive. I found it in his desk while he was out looking for you. I plugged it into my phone. Spreadsheets, documents, emails, all carefully organized by year. Mom, this is everything, she finished. Every transaction, every client, every fake company. He kept records of it all. Why would he risk keeping this? Insurance, she said grimly, in case any of his clients tried to turn on him. But that's not all. She pulled out an envelope. I found these too. Letters from his clients, thanking him for his services. Some very prominent names. My hands shook as I read them. This is exactly what we needed. But Mom, once this gets out, I know. She looked older suddenly, tired. 20 years of marriage gone. But he did this summer. Not you, not me. My phone buzzed with a text from Peyton. Your father's acting strange, ordering me to shred more files. Something about the gala guest list? I showed Mom the message. He's panicking. Good, she said firmly. Let him panic. I forwarded everything to Michael and Elizabeth, then called Michael. This is perfect, he said after I explained. The story's ready to go. We just need the right moment at the gala. I'll create that moment, I promised. Later that night, I sat in Parker's living room, staring at my phone. Dad had sent another message. Whatever you think you know, you don't understand the whole picture. Don't destroy everything I've built. Please, Princess. Parker read it over my shoulder. You okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. After tomorrow. Are you sure about this? Once it's done? There's no going back, I finished. I know, but he gave up the right to my loyalty when he stole my identity. My phone buzzed again. Elizabeth this time. Documents filed with the FBI. They're ready to move as soon as the story breaks. I thought about Dad's face earlier, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd reached for me like I was still his little girl. Part of me wanted to call it off, to believe his excuses about protecting our future. But then I remembered those documents in the filing cabinet. My signature, forged over and over. My identity, used to hide millions in dirty money. My future, sacrificed for his greed. The gala starts at 7 tomorrow, I told Parker. By 8, everything changes. I'll be there, he promised. We all will, I said, thinking of Michael with his story ready, Mom with her evidence, Elizabeth with her legal documents. It's time for the truth to come out. And somewhere across town, in his big, empty house, my father was about to learn that his greatest creation, his perfect, obedient daughter, would also be his destruction. The gala ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and false pretenses. I smoothed down my black dress, feeling the USB drive secured in its hidden pocket. Dad spotted me immediately, making his way through the crowd with that practiced smile of his. Princess, he said, kissing my cheek. You look beautiful. Thanks, Dad. Quite a turnout tonight. His grip on my arm tightened slightly. About yesterday. We should talk privately. Of course, I smiled. After your speech? He relaxed slightly, nodding. Across the room, I caught Mom's eye as she chatted with some of Dad's clients. She gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Summer. Peyton hurried over, looking flustered. Thank goodness you're here. We have a situation with the presentation. Dad's head snapped up. What presentation? The slideshow tribute, I said innocently. For your charity work? Don't worry, I'll help Peyton fix it. As we walked away, Peyton whispered, There's something you need to see. Now. She led me to her office, closing the door. I found something while organizing the final documents for tonight. She pulled out a folder. These were meant to be shredded, but I made copies first. My hands shook as I read. Transfer documents, all dated within the last week. Dad was moving money again. Massive amounts. He's trying to hide everything before it all comes out, I realized. Summer. Peyton's voice cracked. Some of these transfers, they're in my name too. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he was using my identity as well. The door opened suddenly. Dad stood there, his face dark with rage. Both of you, in the ballroom, now. Dad, now. We followed him back to the party. Michael was there now, mingling with his press badge. Mom stood near the podium where Dad would give his speech. Everything was in place, but Dad's expression told me he knew something was wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, clinking his glass, if I could have your attention. The room quieted. This wasn't planned. His speech wasn't supposed to start for another 30 minutes. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight, he continued. But before we proceed, I need to address something. His eyes found mine. My daughter has recently discovered some discrepancies in our family business. My heart stopped. He was going to try to get ahead of it. Dad, I said loudly, stepping forward, don't. These discrepancies, he continued as if I hadn't spoken, might seem concerning out of context, but everything I've done has been completely legal. Legal? The word burst from me. Like identity theft is legal? Like money laundering is legal? The room went dead silent. Summer, he warned, think very carefully about what you're about to do. I pulled out the USB drive. You mean like you thought carefully about stealing my identity? About using me to hide millions in dirty money? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw several of Dad's clients shifting uncomfortably. Or maybe, I continued, my voice carrying across the silent room, we should ask your clients how they feel about their money being laundered through fake companies in my name. Security, Dad barked. Remove her. Don't bother. Michael stepped forward, press badge visible. This is all on record now. The story goes live in 5 minutes. And the FBI has everything, Mom added, her voice strong despite her tears. Dad's face went from red to white. Jessica, you knew about this? I found your records, she said. All of them. The ones you kept as insurance against your clients, they're with the authorities now. The room erupted in chaos. I saw several people rushing for the exits, phones already at their ears. Peyton stood frozen, clutching her folder of evidence. You've destroyed everything, Dad said, advancing toward me. But Parker stepped between us. Don't, Parker warned. It's over. Dad's shoulders sagged. For the first time in my life, he looked old, defeated. I gave you everything, he said quietly. No, I replied. You took everything. My identity, my trust, my future. But tonight, I'm taking it all back. The first police sirens wailed in the distance. Dad's clients were fleeing now, the ballroom emptying rapidly. Michael was already on his phone, presumably talking to his editor. Mom stood with Elizabeth, who had legal documents ready. Princess, Dad tried one last time. Please. My name, I said clearly, is Summer, and I'm not your princess anymore. The ballroom doors burst open as FBI agents flooded in. As they approached Dad, reading him his rights, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only a hollow sort of peace. The truth was finally out, and with it, my father's carefully constructed empire of lies came crashing down around us all. The morning after the gala, I sat in Elizabeth's office, watching the media frenzy unfold on her wall-mounted TV. Michael's story had broken wide open, and now every news channel was running with it. Local business mogul arrested for massive financial fraud, the headlines screamed. Dad's face was everywhere, looking shell-shocked as the FBI led him away in handcuffs. The IRS is dropping all charges against you, Elizabeth said, setting down her phone. They're treating you as a victim of identity theft, which you are. What about the others? I asked. Peyton, Mom? Peyton's cooperating with authorities. Her testimony about the document shredding will be valuable. As for your mother, Elizabeth sighed. She's protected. She had no knowledge of the fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad's attorney. Your father wants to see you. Don't go, Parker said immediately. He'd been quiet until now, sitting beside me and holding my hand. I have to. I stood up. This needs to end face to face. The detention center was cold and sterile. Dad sat across from me in his orange jumpsuit, looking like a stranger. You've made quite a splash, he said, attempting his usual confident smile. It fell flat. That wasn't my goal. No? He leaned forward. Then what was your goal, Summer? To destroy your family? To ruin everything I built? You did that yourself, I said quietly. Every time you forged my signature, every time you used my identity to hide your crimes. Crimes? He scoffed. I created opportunities, built a legacy. Everything I did was for our family's future. Stop lying, I snapped. It wasn't for us. It was for you, your greed, your power, your reputation. He fell silent, studying me. You're different now. I had to be, to survive you. I'm your father. No, I cut him off. A father protects his child. He doesn't use her as a shield for his crimes. The guard announced our time was almost up. The prosecutors offered me a deal, he said quickly. If I cooperate, name names. Then take it. For once in your life, do the right thing. His face crumpled. I'm sorry, Princess. I never meant... Save it. I stood up. Your apologies mean nothing now. Outside, Michael was waiting with fresh coffee and news. The story's everywhere, he said as we walked to his car. More victims are coming forward. Other parents who used their kids' identities for fraud. You've started something big. I didn't want to start anything, I said. I just wanted my life back. My phone rang. Mom. They're searching the house, she said without preamble. The FBI found more documents in his study. Summer, the numbers are worse than we thought, much worse. I closed my eyes. How much? Over 50 million, and not just from his clients. He was stealing from charities, too. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. All those galas, all those charitable donations, just more fronts for his schemes. Back at Parker's apartment, I found Peyton waiting. I gave them everything, she said, wringing her hands. Every file, every transaction I knew about. They're offering me immunity. Good, I said. You should take it. Summer. She hesitated. There's something else. Your father, he had plans for you. He was grooming you to take over, to continue his operation. The room spun slightly. What? Those documents you signed 2 weeks ago? They weren't just for show. He was gradually transferring control to you. He wanted you to become him. I sank onto the couch, Parker's arm immediately around my shoulders. He didn't just steal my identity, I realized. He was trying to steal my soul. My phone buzzed again. Elizabeth. Turn on the news, now. We crowded around Parker's TV. Dad was being led into court, but this time he wasn't alone. Several of his wealthy clients were there too, all in handcuffs. Breaking news, the reporter announced. In a shocking development, prominent business leader Terrence has agreed to cooperate with authorities, exposing a network of financial fraud that reaches into the highest levels of local society. He took the deal, Michael said softly. I watched my father's face on the screen, remembering all the bedtime stories he used to tell me about right and wrong, about integrity and honor. All lies, just like everything else. It's really over, I whispered. Parker squeezed my hand. No, it's just beginning. You're free now. Free. The word felt strange, powerful. For the first time since that IRS notice arrived, I could see a future that wasn't tainted by my father's crimes. But as I watched him disappear into the courthouse, I realized some prices are too high, even for freedom. The cost of this one was my father, my family name, and every childhood memory I'd ever treasured. The courtroom fell silent as Dad stood for sentencing. I sat between Mom and Parker, Michael on the row behind us, his notepad ready. Terrence, the judge began, your cooperation with authorities has been noted. However, the severity and duration of your crimes cannot be overlooked. The court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison. I watched Dad's shoulders slump as the judge continued listing penalties and fines. When the gavel struck, finalizing everything, he turned to look at me one last time. "Wait," I said, standing up as the bailiff approached him. "I need to say something." The judge nodded, and I walked to the podium. "Dad," my voice shook slightly, "you used to tell me that our name meant something, that integrity was everything. I believed you, every word." He stared at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "But now I understand. Those weren't lessons. They were warnings. You were showing me exactly who you weren't, hoping I'd become everything you failed to be." Finally, he looked up. "Well, congratulations," I continued. "I am. I'm choosing integrity, truth, everything you taught me but never lived, and that's the last thing you'll ever give me." As the bailiff led him away, he called out, "Princess, goodbye, Dad." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Michael stepped forward, handling their questions while Parker guided me through the crowd to his car. "Where to?" he asked once we were inside. "The house," I said. "One last time." Mom met us there, keys in hand. "The sale closes tomorrow. Did you get everything you needed?" I nodded, walking through the empty rooms that had once held so many memories. In Dad's study, I opened his desk drawer one final time. There it was, the photo I'd come for. Me at 5 years old, sitting on Dad's shoulders at the park. Both of us laughing before the lies, before the fraud, before everything fell apart. "You should take it," Mom said softly from the doorway. "Why? It's not real. None of it was." "The love was real," she said. "That's what makes this so tragic. He loved you, Summer. He just loved power more." My phone buzzed. "Elizabeth, IRS officially cleared you. Your credit's being restored. You're free and clear." In the kitchen, I found Peyton boxing up the last of the files for the FBI. "I got a job offer," she said. "Compliance officer at a bank. Ironic, right?" "Perfect, actually. Who better to spot fraud than someone who helped hide it?" She smiled sadly. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Didn't tell you." "You did when it mattered." Parker appeared with the last box from the basement. "Found something you should see." Inside was a journal, Dad's private records. The first entry was dated the day I was born. "My daughter arrived today," I read aloud. "Perfect and pure. I swear I'll give her everything, make her proud." I closed the book. He really believed he was doing the right thing, didn't he? "The road to hell," Michael said from behind me, "is paved with Father's intentions." Later that evening, we all gathered at Parker's apartment. Mom, Michael, Peyton, Elizabeth. Family, but chosen this time, not born into. "The story's going international," Michael said, showing us his laptop. "People are coming forward everywhere. Parents using their kids' identities, hidden accounts, generational fraud. You've sparked something huge." "We should start a foundation," Mom suggested. "Help other victims navigate this. Use what we've learned." "Already working on it," Elizabeth said. "The FBI wants Summer to consult on similar cases." I looked around at these people who'd helped me expose the truth, who'd stood by me through everything. "Thank you," I said simply. "All of you." "What now?" Parker asked, taking my hand. I pulled out the childhood photo I'd taken from Dad's desk. The little girl on those shoulders had believed in fairy tales and happy endings. The woman I'd become knew better. "Now," I said, "we build something real, something honest." "Together," Mom added firmly. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Dad's prison email account. "You were right. About everything. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you deserved. But I'm proud of the daughter you've become. Not Princess anymore, just Summer. Strong, honest, true. Everything I should have been." I showed the message to Parker. "Are you going to respond?" he asked. "No," I said, deleting it. "Some stories don't need happy endings. They just need true ones." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one a promise of possibility. My father had built his legacy on lies, but I would build mine on truth. It wouldn't be perfect or easy, but it would be real. And really, that's all I'd wanted from the beginning.